Welcome back to Sailing Cedar McLeod. In this episode, we leave the north coast behind and head around Cape Caution back to the protected waters of Vancouver Island. After a pretty rough and tumble crossing, we're greeted by flat water and rainbows as we approach God's Pocket, which is a wonderful little scuba diving resort where I used to work in the beautiful Christie Passage. We explore the island and catch up with some old friends, and then continue south towards Port Hardy in some pretty flat water. Thanks so much for watching and enjoy the episode.
Good morning at 5 a.m. There's a gale warning in effect, at least there was last night. It's pretty much totally calm, and there's just a little breeze from like northeast or northwest right now. So we'll go see what's out here in a little bit.
Motoring out of Schooner Retreat. We had a very calm, very peaceful night. There's a gale warning in the forecast for this specific region, but there's almost no wind. There's a little westerly blowing, it would seem, which would be awesome if that's actually what's happening. So we're just going to motor out of here and get out into the wind and see what we have. This is one of the main cruxes of the whole inside passage is Cape Caution. It's probably the main crux that kind of freaks a lot of people out, and with good reason. You're totally exposed to the Pacific Ocean. There's a whole lot of overlapping currents, so there's currents piling out of Rivers Inlet, Smith Sound, and Fitz Hugh Sound, or flooding into it. And then same thing for Queen Charlotte Strait. So you can get really advanced sea states, or really exaggerated sea states from the wind, or from the current against the wind. So today we're riding the ebb out of Fitz Hugh Sound. That goes till around 11:30, ebb current, and that should hopefully get us to about Cape Caution. That's the goal, is to try to meet the slack tide at Cape Caution, where there's some shallows and where the seas can be probably the worst because you're most exposed right there, and then to ride the flood into Queen Charlotte Strait, which also starts at about 11:30. You might lunge or something. Here you see the bait coming up. The wind has finally decided to come up. We're just off Cape Calvert here, near Paddle Rocks as well on the other side of us. And yeah, it's a pretty nice angle right now. We're going exactly where we want to go, pretty much close hauled. So hopefully this angle holds. We do have to veer a little bit more to the east, so we might have to do a few tacks, but this is pretty much what we wanted. Yeah, we'll see if this forecast has any reality in it. It's totally possible that we'll get spanked for a little bit, but right now it doesn't really feel like it's going to happen.
Guys, I know everyone's been wondering about my facial routine, and I gotta just say, you know, natural caught halibut is the trick. Keeps the scruff coming in really nice, and
keeps you looking young, right, Alex? Because you're actually 65 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, should have seen him at the start of this trip before he had the rejuvenating experience with halibut. Anything else to say?
Cheeseburgers.
All right. That's one of Alex's code words for, I'm not sure what it is, but he likes to say it. What's for dinner? Cheeseburgers. That's what's for dinner. Here is Calvert Island and Cape Calvert behind us. Paddle Rocks to our port side. And there's Egg Island up ahead. And some building winds. And building seas. Starting to pick up somewhat here. We got our first reef in and some jib rolled in, down to about a working jib now. So there's a pretty nice long period swell. It's not really bothering us, and a bit of wind wave. not much traffic, just a bunch of little fish boats by Rivers Inlet heading across to Calvert. Some salmon fishing, and then one tug and tow. As we guessed, the wind did pick up. We are now double reefed with a bunch of jib in as well, and we are cooking along. This should be our last tack we have to make for quite a while. We're just getting clear of the reefs that are on the west side of South Passage. So this is probably the passage of the low. Hopefully it doesn't get too much stronger, but we got more sail to reduce if necessary. And the sea state's still pretty good. There's definitely some swell, some chop. But we're perfectly comfortable right now, and yeah, should be just fine. Cruising along. It's about 1 o'clock now, and we are entering Queen Charlotte Strait. We're about 10 miles off Hope Island, but we're getting this awesome arch. I think the wind could be shifting a bit, but I think also the current pulling into Gordon Channel is helping us a ton and sucking us that way. So our angle is really nice right now, and we haven't had a tack for a couple hours now, going all the way past Cape Caution. So yeah, things are looking really nice. You know, it felt a little bit slight nervousness, I guess, going out when there was a gale in the forecast, but we didn't see any of it. Pretty much what the European weather model suggested was that it was going to be further out to sea, and there's some of those stations did report some gale wind, but around here it's been probably pretty steady, 20 knots. Sometimes it went up to probably about 25, but not for very long. So we've just been bombing along at 5.5 to even 6 knots, 6.5 at times, and we got a double reef main and the furled in Genoa still, and that's working really well for us. And yeah, not surprisingly, we're about the only boat out here other than ships. There was a few folks that looks like they maybe went into Rivers Inlet or into Smith Sound or just Skull Cove or something like that. But we're carrying on here down towards Hearst Island is the goal today.
Right time Sunday, average 14 today, tonight and Monday. The next
Alright, so the seas have flattened out a bit, making some grilled cheese, and we are just passing Pine Island now, and I think about 10 miles or less towards Christie Passage and God's Pocket area, and a cool anchorage might go anchor in, where also a scuba diving resort that I used to work at for a bunch of years, so I spent a lot of time in this area. It's a really great area where I was able to practice sailing before I set sail to Alaska last time in 2011. I came up here on my very first year of sailing with my boat solo, actually, from the Sailor's Sea up to God's Pocket, where I was working and starting a shift, and got to keep sailing around throughout the fall. Passing Pine Island still, but we just shook our last of our reefs, and the wind is coming down quite a bit. We're still making a fine speed. Picking up back to 5 knots here, but it's pretty nice. The seas are flattening right out, and it's just a fine way to finish the day. But a big long day. We'll end up making, if we make it to God's Pocket, we'll have probably done, I think, about 45 miles, a bit more, all close hauled pretty much. So that's pretty. That's quite a bit of distance, especially in these open waters here. So we made some very nice time all day. course there's a rainbow after a day like today. Motoring the last couple miles here. I'm just too excited to get to God's Pocket, and we've had a very long day. It would have taken us like an hour to tack through this with the current starting to turn against us. So I'm doing the unthinkable and motoring a few miles when I could be sailing, but it's worth it. And there are humpbacks around, and there are also a couple orcas just in front of us here. So it's going to be a pretty nice entrance into Christie Passage and then into God's Pocket, where we'll anchor up for the night. Sailing on into Christie Pass, right past Scarlet Point. We're just a mile and a half from God's Pocket. There's a nice little breeze, and there's a whole bunch of whales, so we turned the engine off and put the sails back up, drifted around for a bit, and had those orcas come right by us here. Yeah, super fantastic way to end the day. Bunch of whales. I think I ordered them at about 3 o'clock, and here they are. Just about to sail up in front of God's Pocket here. The story I heard of where the name came from was that it was a savior for all the fishermen, that you can pretty much have protection. You get some pretty good protection from northwestern here, and certainly from southeast. And so it was a savior for the fishermen. That's why they called it God's Pocket. Good morning from Hearst Island and God's Pocket. We had a very peaceful night here last night, and had the great fortune that the old owner of God's Pocket, who owns property across the way, was around, so we went and had a visit with him, with Bill. And again, visited again this morning. He came by the boat, checked it out. But yeah, it's super nice to be back here. I spent, I think it was like 4 or 5 chunks of 4 or 5 years working at the spot as a shaft sweep. Little baby crows chasing around their mums, harassing them. And yeah, we're gonna go for a little hike up to the top of the hill here and look out Gordon Channel and Galeas Channel and see how the fog looks. Got lots of stuff drying on the boat right now with this nice sunny morning after such a damp day yesterday. Yeah, beautiful place to be here. God's Pocket's primarily a dive resort. They also do a bit of kayaking in the middle of summer when the water can get a little murky and isn't great for diving. But most of the time, I think from about March through to June is diving, and then there's some kayaking for June through early July, and that switches back to diving up until October when the days get shorter and the storms start rolling in. Previously, it was a fishing lodge, but when Bill and Annie, the previous owners, took over, they switched it to being a scuba diving resort. Just going for a hike up the little mountain here, just behind the lodge. This is a little hike I would do all the time when I worked here. It's just a quick little 10-minute thing. So pretty sweet just for a little quiet time or see the view or whatever. Or go up during a storm. It's real fun. We're just up on the little mountain by the God's Pocket Resort, looking out over Gordon and Galeas channels. There's a bit of fog. We can see there's a bit of breeze, but the fog is quite thin. And the flood has started, which is going to push us the direction we want to go while we're tacking. So we're going to get down the hill here and back to the boat and get sailing. But super nice to be back up here. It's such a cool ecosystem. All these shore pine up here, and there's even like kind of marshy grasses around here, and these little nooks that are a lot of the year are completely soaked and full of water. Just kind of July, August up here, maybe September can be quite dry, but they survive through that little drought periods they'll get. But the rest of the year is just rain most of the time. So it's get this really unique kind of bogland, marshy, muskeggy thing going on, even in these kind of rocky outcrops like I'm standing on here. Heading out of God's Pocket now, and there's appears to be a northwesterly blowing right now. A bit sporadic, but we'll see what we get here. And the current is in our favor. We're going to hang a left and head into Gleadus Channel and enjoy the current that's coming in through Christie Passage here. This little northwest breeze is real. We're actually sailing here, going 3 knots out the little current boost out of God's Pocket here. There's a boat I saw in Glacier Bay. They anchored up just as we were leaving Reed Inlet. So that's kind of cool to see them all the way down here. And I'm doing about the same thing. They just anchored and we're leaving, so we're running from them. Maybe they'll catch up with us a little later. Cool catamaran powerboat unit. Looks like it'd be pretty efficient through the water. So that little wind that was here died, but we are going 1 knot in the right direction with the current. And it's super moist and quite warm out, but I can see my breath. With all the moisture here, it's kind of just going away as I try to do that now. Cool. Well, hi there from Gleadus Channel. I call this move the drifting anchorage. We have current in our favor, so we are going 0.3 knots, 0.4 knots in the right direction, waiting for a breeze. The boat has spun around. We're now pointing north, but don't let that fool you. We are going south, stern, just backing up basically towards Port Hardy here. So yeah, we're just hanging out, listening to Willie Nelson.
That you're happy.
It's about hour 3 of our current drift styles, drift anchorage. We have traveled about 3 miles, I think now. The forecast for this area is 10 to 20 from the south. Looks a little different than that. So yeah, that's an Environment Canada weather forecast. We're just kind of cruising along here. We're pretty close to Port Hardy now, so if nothing at all happens in the next hour or 2, when the tide turns against us, we'll head in there, most likely anchor up. So Alex is trolling right now. We're going too slow to troll, so he's walking up the boat to bring us to trolling speed. Goes up to the bow, and then he comes back. Actually, there's a little breeze kicking up now. Might be trolling. Okay, now we're going 0.7. So you can walk slower now, Alex. Trying to get about 1.5 knots of troll speed. So he's back at the stern, back forward. There we go. Yeah, trolling speed. Well, there was a whole lot of nothing happening. We decided to head into Port Hardy, to do a little reprovisioning. So we're gonna just motor this. We have like 5 miles to go, 4 miles, something like that. And we'll go check out Port Hardy, grab some food, maybe go out for dinner if there's something that looks decent. The forecast, as I said, was 10 to 20 from the south. And Environment Canada forecasts definitely are often really bad or inaccurate. But usually if they say 10 to 20, there's gonna be something. There was basically nothing pretty much all day. Maybe a little bit before we left it looked kind of saleable, but then it was all foggy. So can't win them all. Just gonna end up, we sailed I think about 5 miles, almost, or 4 miles. And then we're gonna motor about 5 miles. So yeah, kind of a half and half day, that's all right. 3 hours for 5 miles, and we'll do 50 minutes for the next 5.
Well, that wraps up this episode of Sailing Cedar McClyde. Perhaps feeling a little bored by the very calm conditions of the day that this episode ends on, I didn't take any more footage, so it just ends right here. In the next episode coming up, we depart Port Hardy in also really calm conditions, but we get a nice little breeze to start the day, and an orca whale show. After our little encounter with the orcas, we spend most of the rest of the day drifting slowly towards Malcolm Island, and Alert Bay where we end up that evening. We do get a little bit of a sail towards the end of the day as the light starts to fade, and a beautiful sunset marks another wonderful day on the water. In Alert Bay, we wake up to fog and calm conditions once again, but the fog quickly burns off and we decide to depart. After some more whale action just south of Alert Bay, the wind does finally pipe up and we get a really nice run down Johnstone Strait towards Port Neville. Thanks so much for watching. If you're enjoying the series, do hit that subscribe button. Bye for now!